No, but if you'd only let me explain. You see, I just gave someone that bag to hold and that... I hope you realize that you've made a perfect fool of yourself in front of everyone. Have you finished?
Yes, I have.
Thank you very much. Oh.
You lied to me.
Yes, but just a little
Telling
bit.
me a
I mean, no.
ridiculous story about
but
a
it isn't
leopard.
a ridiculous story. I have
Where is the leopard?
In there.
I don't believe you.
But you must believe
I've been
me.
the
That's
victim
good.
once more of your unbridled imagination.
What do you want?
Well, Mrs. Random invited me for dinner. Would you please find out if she still wants me?
She's hung up.
Yeah, oh, so am I.
I am Major Horace Applegate of the Explorers Club.
What are you doing? What are you doing with that gun?
The gun, I have been hunting leopards.
You've been hunting leopards, have you?
Yes, I have been hunting leopards.
Any luck?
Well, not what I'm accustomed to, no. You see, I was slightly confused regarding
Boys,
leopards. They told me that
Take your hands off that man!
Come on,
Come on, stop.
Lock him.
Hey, let go.
Hello, Gildersleeve.
Oh, Miss Susan, how in the world did you get here?
Influence.
You mean to tell me he wants to wear that thing?
Look, of course I don't want to wear this thing. All I want to do is get married.
Susan, I forbid it. I absolutely put my foot down.
Oh, but Artie, you
I'll
don't
put you
understand,
up
but
without
please
a
let me explain.
Now,
Now,
you
all
want
I
to
do,
marry a
please
man
listen
like
to me.
that?
Quiet!
Oh, but David, please. Oh!
Hello, welcome to Movie Umpers. My name is Bob Sham,
Hi, I'm Angela.
and the sound you hear may be dogs. We are finally on the other side. We've left the galaxy far, far away,
Thank God.
and it was a lot. It felt like a lot, too much to do a whole franchise dump. Well, we don't have much time for much anything else, but we're back to a new theme. Well, it's like an old theme. We did a Movies Are Gay last year. And it was our first theme in our current format of where there's like 3 drops a week.
Yeah.
So Movies Are Gay is the first theme in which kind of more realize what we would become. Do you remember the themes before that? It was...
we did Animation Overload.
Yeah, that was the first one, which we watched like 3 animated movies.
We were doing a lot of the drawing out of a hat stuff back then.
Did Awkward Laughter, which was slapstick comedies, and this one is a little we're doing a screwball comedy today, and we did Michael Mann May. Watch Michael Mann movies.
Fun.
Yeah, that was fun. And now it's Movies Are Gay too. That's right, movies about and by LGBTQ, some makers and some that are just kind of adjacent. For our classic selections, it's often about subtext when you're going into the old movies, and there's something about when you're diving into the subtext of classic movies and you realize how gay they are, they almost seem more gay than movies that are openly gay now. There's just something about it. Though we do got 2 Fassbender movies this month, including Corel, which we'll discuss at the end of this month. And just looking at the clips from that movie, that might be the gayest thing we will ever watch. That said, we're going back to the classics. After sitting through a bunch of Star Wars, I've never been more excited to watch a movie in black and white.
Yeah.
From 1938, directed by Howard Hawks. We're talking about the movie Bringing Up Baby. And this movie was written by Dudley Nichols and Hagar Wilde. Hagar Wilde is a lady who wrote a short story in Collier's called Bringing Up Baby.
Aw.
It stars Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, May Robson, Charles Ruggles, Nyssa the leopard, and Skippy the dog.
Aw.
That was their names.
They were great.
And the bad leopard and the good leopard were both played by the same leopard.
No way.
Is that really that?
Well,
You're stunned by that. They just pissed it off for half the scenes it was in.
I convinced myself that I could tell the difference.
No, you couldn't. Yeah, one was mad and the other was chill playing with the dog. And yes.
Of course it was the same one because she was trained, but still.
And this is from RKO Pictures, Howard Hawks. This is our second Howard Hawks movie. The first one we discussed was The Big Sleep. And we will be talking about another Howard Hawks movie before the end of the year. Howard Hawks, compared to a lot of his contemporaries at the time, he started in silent movies and worked his way into the talkies.
Yeah.
But you couldn't peg him down with a genre. He did westerns, he did screwball comedies, he did movies with like sassy, strong women in them. Then he would do The Big Sleep, stuff like that. He was all over the place. You couldn't peg him down. But he was also a guy that was more appreciated as time went on.
Yeah.
But this movie was written for Katharine Hepburn. Specifically,
that makes sense.
She was a big star at the time, and Cary Grant was definitely more of a younger star of the day. They call it a screwball comedy. This movie was not a hit when it came out. And I think the reason that was because there's the style of comedy when you go back into the mid-20th century and going earlier, seemed like a lot of comedies had that screwball sensibility. We saw it in the Jerry Lewis movies, his own version of that, and what led to those stuff like this led to the Jerry Lewis movies. This movie would be re-released in the 40s to a little bit more fanfare.
Interesting.
And I think as it played on TV over the years, this is one of those movies that became much more well-regarded, much more popular. And people, as the dust settles, when we're looking back on these older movies, we have the convenience of time showing us what rises above. And so compared to a lot of screwball comedies that you could watch at the time, I think in hindsight, you look back and Bringing Up Baby seems to be one of the more well-regarded ones.
It's much more grounded in reality than the things you mentioned, like Jerry Lewis movies. It's crazy. The story is a screwball comedy, but there's nothing supernatural happening. It's all just in their awkwardness with each other and trying to deal with everything. I don't know how many women did this sort of movie before her, but watching this movie, which has been referenced in pop culture our whole lives, I didn't know what it was about. But it seems as though, without knowing any different, it would be really easy to say that she is directly responsible for all the fast-talking, funny, super quippy women of today.
Now, don't worry, David. Everything's going to be all right. And tomorrow, when Poopy's calmed down, we'll go and see him together.
Now, just a moment, Susan. Don't think that I don't appreciate all you've done, but...
Oh, it was nothing, David, really.
Just a moment. But there are limits to what a man can bear. And besides that, tomorrow afternoon I'm going to get married.
What for?
Well, because... Well, anyway, I'm going to get married, Susan, and don't interrupt.
No.
Now, my future wife has always regarded me as a man of some dignity.
You hear her voice, and like we haven't watched a ton of Katharine Hepburn, but her voice, her tone is become this trope almost.
Yeah, she's almost manic.
Yeah.
She's too all over the place. There's this charm to her. The male character even says...
Now, it isn't that I don't like you, Susan, because, after all, in moments of quiet, I'm strangely drawn toward you, but, well, there haven't been any quiet moments.
Cary Grant, this movie also stars Cary Grant as a very nerdy archaeologist who's looking for a specific bone, the intercostal clavicle, for his brontosaurus.
He's been building this brontosaurus for 3 or 5 years. Long time.
And he's trying to get a grant. Like this lady is going to have $1 million, and she might give it to the museum. And so, and he looks like if Clark Kent was never Superman.
I thought the same thing.
That he would probably be just like this.
Yes.
But they present him as very nerdy. Yes. He's still a handsome guy. And also, because movies are gay, Cary Grant, gay as hell. A lot of people say bi. It seems like the more you peel the onion, this guy was just very gay.
It was a more acceptable thing, even now, to say that someone is bi or curious or experimental, because you can also say, oh, that was just a crazy night. You saw me on a crazy night. That wasn't real, whatever. It's interesting, though, in this movie, knowing that almost from the open of the film, there were comments that were being made that could underhandedly know that. They also establish immediately that though he is this bumbling science man, he's engaged to be married tomorrow afternoon, and it is very much an appointment. The wife to be,
this is a business arrangement, not a relationship, right?
Why, as soon as we're married, we're coming directly back here, and you're going on with your work.
Oh, well, Alice, gee,
Now, once and for all, David, nothing must interfere with your work. Our marriage must entail no domestic entanglements of any kind.
You mean?
I mean of any kind, David.
Oh, well, Alice, I was sort of hoping, well, you mean children and all that sort of thing?
Exactly.
Oh.
This will be our child.
Huh?
she
She's
says
so
to him
cold.
at one point, there are to be no marital restrictions in our marriage, something along those lines. And he truly says, none? What are you talking
She doesn't
about?
even want kids, like this career.
She doesn't want kids,
This
she doesn't want
brontosaurus
love.
skeleton. This is unlike any woman we've ever seen in a movie. Here.
I believe that she thinks he's doing good work, and she is his assistant, and she thinks that if she marries him, she will go with him to the top or wherever,
like,
or she wants to take care of
I
him.
will be your beard, and we will grow in this career together.
Yeah, it's a marriage only in function. And she does not care.
We don't see her a lot, but that is a very strange character.
Also, what was going on with her?
Yeah.
Maybe she liked ladies and just wanted a completely open. Maybe she needed also a beard. What is
Like,
it called?
This is a Charles Lofton, Elsa Lanchester type
Yeah,
relationship.
maybe.
Trying to be.
Maybe.
Well, this is a lot of bungling. And, as we get into the gay subtext of this movie, which there is some, admittedly, it's the knowledge of today looking back on then. I don't know if certain things were meant to be coded, but there's just some things that just stand out. Like, you had mentioned that there's a few lines early on, he's talking about where to put the brontosaurus tail.
Alice, I think this one must belong in the tail.
Nonsense. You tried it in the tail yesterday, and it didn't fit.
Oh, yes, that's right, I did, didn't I?
He does eventually meet up with this heiress named Susan Vance by chance. He meets Susan Vance on a golf course when he's trying to woo this guy who is
He's the lawyer of the woman who has the $1 million.
So yeah, and they lose their ball and he goes to get it and she's like using the ball. And from that point on, it seems like with the Jerry Lewis screwball movies, I noted that it felt like Jerry Lewis was a curse from God sent in each movie to destroy a character or maybe a whole community.
Oh yeah, and Susan is his.
And Susan feels like, in screwball comedies, it feels like someone is a curse against someone else. But yeah, Susan is the curse against David, who's played by Cary Grant. And they're both a curse to like everyone else around them as well. That's how they meet. And he doesn't know that she's the heiress at first.
No.
But but now it's her goal to get him to come and help her do anything and everything all the time. She talks him into going into Connecticut. In a way, it's just like, well, just say no, David, right? Just don't do it. But this is the nature of the comedy. It's almost like he has that chivalrousness about him.
Yes.
Where he's trying to say no to her at some point, and then she's pretending like she's being hurt by something called called baby.
Yes, well, she tells him that she has a leopard in her apartment. So their relationship starts out like that who's on first joke. Every conversation they have, it's like, that's my ball. No, that's my ball. Whose ball? Your ball. My ball. And the car.
What do you think you're doing?
I'm trying to unpark my car. Oh, hello.
This is my car.
Oh, good. Then would you mind moving it out of the way?
No, this is my car.
Yes, I understand that. If you move it back about 4 feet, well, I'll be able to get out.
Well, I'm afraid you made a mistake. Maybe this is your... What did you say?
I said, if you move it back about 4 feet, I'll be able to get out. I'm in a terrible hurry and I can't budge.
Oh, you want me to move your
Would
car?
you mind terribly?
Well, yes, I will, but...
Oh, that'd be awfully kind of
Well, take
you.
it very easy with that car.
Yes, I'll go slowly.
She gets him in trouble. There's also a man who they are both, like you said, definitely cursing this one man and his wife, who they just keep showing up in this guy's life, and he just does not understand. And they accidentally steal his wife's purse at some point. But basically what it is he keeps trying to meet up with this lawyer so that he can convince the lawyer to convince the rich woman that she should give him $1 million to the museum. And Susan is always in these same places because he doesn't realize until later that she's the niece.
Yeah.
And she knows the lawyer guy. And she'll do crazy things like tell him, oh, I know the lawyer, let's go to his house. And then they drive around the neighborhood for 30 minutes. And he says to her, we've passed this house 6 times. And she says, but isn't it a lovely night for a drive, David? Like, everything is so playful.
Their dialogue is completely... They're actually great together.
They really are.
And the way that their dialogue overlaps and layers through, like, this is kind of one of those movies where I wouldn't mind rewatching this again soon, just because there's so much dialogue, so much conversation here.
You know you're missing stuff.
That, like, there's just little things, these little bits. It is kind of a fairly deep comedy once you really get in there. Well, he goes to her house and, yeah, she really does have a leopard if he goes there after she pretends to be mauled by this leopard.
Yeah, she has this story about her brother was big game hunting and sent her this leopard.
Oh, of course, it's a stuffed leopard.
Of course, now, why should my brother Mark be hunting stuffed leopards in Brazil when he used stuffed leopard, when he can find them right here in New York? Well, David, it's lucky I met you yesterday because you're the only zoologist I know. Well, of course I know what a zoologist is.
Didn't explain to her anything about it, just said, take care of baby.
Yeah.
And she knows he's a zoologist, but she's also already head over heels for him.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly when that happens, but at some point, she's so clever. She's such a good actress because at some point she goes from being playful to this, her face changes when she looks at him. And you just know. She doesn't have to explain it ever. And she's not even really obvious about it until her aunt comes into the picture and she starts saying, oh, we're going to get married. She knows he's scheduled to be married the next day, so she concocts this whole reason that he has to come with her to Connecticut to protect her because Baby is a dangerous leopard. But Baby is like a house cat that he's in love with, or falls in love with him also.
Yeah, Baby is a leopard, and it's a very sweet leopard, and they do end up going to his aunt's house. Where does he get the bone delivered? Does he get the bone delivered? He's carrying it. When does he get the bone?
He has it when she calls him. So he doesn't want to like her, but he cares about her. And so he had just gotten it. He had called his fiance to say, I've got the bone, meet me at the museum. And then his phone rings and it's her. And he runs to her because he thinks she's hurt. So he has this bone in the box the entire way to Connecticut.
Right. So
and he can't tell his fiance that he's not coming, 1, to the museum, or 2, to the wedding.
Cary Grant's physical moments, and we see him like do pratfalls, and there's one point where he just slips and slides, and it's really well done. Like these little bits of physical comedy. I mean, it's just kind of a fun movie overall. And we're not going to be able to get into every little detail because there's so much dialogue. We'll explain as much as we can, but you really want to experience the humor and the interactions for yourself.
Absolutely. And the story is really not that complicated, but you speaking about the way he would take his pratfalls and things, there is a grace and naturalness to the way they perform in this movie that it's not so obvious. It just happens and it makes sense and it's bumbling. I can't tell you a moment when that happened, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah. But Jerry Lewis, it's like, look at me, I'm gonna do flips now. You know, it's like there's a grace to the way that they perform this type of comedy that is refreshing and lovely.
The moments seem really well executed are just sudden.
They just happen.
You're not watching it to be like, oh, this is the moment like you would a Jerry Lewis movie.
Yeah.
It just is like suddenly he's just zonked out. Suddenly he's just slipping.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be playing it very straight, no pun intended, with this character.
Well, my favorite part, and I will not steal the telling of the history part from you, but once they go to Connecticut, she doesn't want him to leave, and she knows he's going to try to leave right away. So he gets in the shower, and she sends his clothes into town to be cleaned and pressed. And he takes the shower, and then he's running around in a negligee.
And like
the only thing she left for him to
lingerie,
wear.
And he's walking around.
And that's the second her aunt shows up.
And the aunt shows up. Actually, a very infamous line.
Well, who are you?
I don't know. I'm not quite myself today.
Well, you look perfectly idiotic in those clothes.
These aren't my clothes.
Well, where are your clothes?
I've lost my clothes.
Well, why are you wearing these clothes?
Because I just went gay all of a sudden.
I've gone gay all of a sudden.
Jumps.
We all know now gay has a couple of terms, of course, a couple of meanings. It means happy. And we've heard it a lot in old movies well into the mid-20th century.
Absolutely.
But the gay meaning homosexual was an existing term back then, but for a long time it was only kind of known in these what had to be subcultures of gay communities.
Yeah, specific circles.
They would reference their sexuality in this way, but only amongst themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, allegedly, Cary Grant had ad-libbed this line. The average person who watched this movie's like rated G.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you watch this, you would just saying like, oh, he's so happy he's wearing women's... And it's also a part of screwball comedy to put a man in women's clothes.
Absolutely.
And that was a big funny-ass thing.
And you could almost take the gay is happy is kind of crazy. Like, he's delirious.
That's how so the censors, this is early Hays Code, so this went right past the censors. But he absolutely, especially with modern eyes looking back, he absolutely means he's turned homosexual all of a sudden. And this is the first known instance of the term gay being used to mean that specific thing. But because that culture was so suppressed from the mainstream, then you could do these things that seemed so obviously gay. This is what I mean about how subtext sometimes feels gayer than something that just is blatantly gay. That when the culture is suppressed from mainstream society, then in certain ways you can exhibit that culture.
Oh,
and
yeah.
everyone around you will have no idea. And this is a case where it went right past people in charge who are trying to be goody two-shoes, trying to block certain things from certain audiences.
You're talking about it in plain sight in front of people who are not looking for it.
And of course, Cary Grant.
But if you're looking
gay.
for it, yeah.
He knew the term. He partying with James Weld, Charles Lofton, probably. I don't know.
And you know they all loved that he did this.
Oh, it had to have been a big fucking hit.
Yeah.
In the underground, right?
Man, it's such a cool thing that he did. Also knowing how closeted he was during certain periods and how he even like backed away from relationships. This moment when he decided to do that might be one of the only times that he publicly was like, hey, sorry, that he publicly said, guess what?
Yeah.
I'm gay.
That's about probably the most he ever came out, probably.
Which is actually ultimately extraordinarily sad. He is a very sad figure to me, but...
It's hard not to be a little sad when we do Movies Are Gay, especially when we get into the old movies because of the... Last year we talked a lot about Rock Hudson. I almost wanted to do a whole Paul Lynde thing this month, but he's so self-loathing. It'd probably be better just to throw that down the pike. And Paul Lynde was more of a TV guy anyway.
We will see him later in the year, and we can talk about him then.
So Susan's aunt's dog steals the bone.
George,
who is played by Skippy, the dog. So David he doesn't care about... Susan cares about the leopard because it's lost and it's runner. It's constantly getting loose.
Oh, they put it in the stables and they're hiding it from her aunt.
Yeah. And they later realized that her uncle or whatever, brother, meant to give the leopard to the aunt.
It was a surprise, though. or something.
So David's running around looking for his bone.
Yeah.
And Susan's running around looking for her pussy.
But she also wants to find the bone because it is time she gets to spend with David. Because she's in love with David, and if the bone's missing, David can't leave. And so that's ultimately good. So they're following George around everywhere he's digging holes all through the aunt's 26 acres of property.
He keeps digging up boots, and at some points, the scene cuts. And this was so funny to me. I
know.
Where the scene cuts and...
Susan, do you think George is really trying?
Well, David, almost every place he's taken us, we found something.
There's nothing here.
Oh, look, David, another boot.
Oh, another boot. That makes 3 pairs.
Which means they dug up 6 boots. I mean, George is really giving them all of his treasure.
And David is just staring at this dog, like, desperately needs this bone, and he needs the bone. And so they're just sitting at, like, dinner, and watching, he's just staring at the dog, like, intently, like, disturbingly.
Oh, and this becomes even more ridiculous because he tells Susan, your aunt cannot find out that my last name is Huxley. Is that right? David Huxley?
Yeah, because he's such a, like, goof. She thinks he's such a goober.
Well, because then he'll know that then she'll know he's the man from the museum who's been talking to her lawyer. So she says his name is David Bone. And then for dinner, we get our lovely rich gentleman of the house from It Happened on Fifth Avenue.
Charles Ruggles
comes over for dinner, and he's a big game hunter. And for some reason, Susan tells her aunt that David Bone is a big game hunter. And so this man is trying to talk to him. She's also told her aunt that he is recovering from a nervous breakdown. So she just tells lie upon lie upon lie.
And also, there happens to be a circus that has a leopard.
Oh my God, right.
And the leopard is mean and has mauled people. David and Susan let the thing out, thinking that they captured Baby. So now there's another leopard running around that's like a man killer. Charles Ruggles, the game hunter, as you said, is doing all these like calls of animal calls and stuff. And
there's no way he was making those noises.
Oh, pardon me.
No.
Like, no way.
No.
If he just went like this.
But at one point, he's outside with a friend, and he makes the call, and he encounters...
it's the drunk house man.
And he the stereotypically drunk Irish guy, who is funny in and of himself.
He's like
He does the call, and he knows that there's a nice leopard loose. So when he does the call and the mean leopard shows up, they think it's Baby, and then it starts to chase them. Oh, and there's a part where Baby, the leopard, is playing with the dog.
They're friends.
And they're just rolling around and having a good time.
Well, part of the brother's letter, forgetting to say this leopard is for our aunt, he does tell her he likes dogs, or she likes dogs. And they have this moment where they say to play with them or eat them. So at first they're afraid that Baby is going to eat George, but they end up just...
No, Baby
they're
literally
best
loves
friends.
George.
Yeah.
They're buddies.
So cool. It's actually really sweet.
It all ends up some crazy shit where everyone ends up getting locked up and no one believes that people are related to each other. And then the leopard is running into the jail where the constables locked everyone up. So they have the leopards locked up with other people. We won't go into like the hair splitting details of this. It is all extremely goofy, and like any kind of screwball-y comedy, it seems like just, some basic communication might be able to solve a lot of these problems.
So many, but even when they say exactly who they are and what they're doing, there's one person going, nope, I don't believe you.
No.
And then doesn't wrap up until the carnival men show up and kind of explain what's happening. And in that moment, amazingly, in the jail is Baby and George and everyone else in the cast. And then in comes the door, Susan, with a rope around the mean leopard's neck.
And she thinks she has Baby.
And somehow she caught this feral leopard.
Well, after this scene, everything kind of goes back to normal. Yeah. But at this point, David has beyond missed his wedding appointment. He was supposed to get
wife broke up with
married
him.
like the day before.
Yeah.
And she doesn't seem all that upset by it, truly.
No, but she truly is like, I quit you and my job.
Yeah.
And she just leaves.
Susan goes to see David as he's putting the clavicle into the brontosaurus. And she tells him like how much that he means to her. Mm-hmm. Oh, it hits him like a ton of bricks.
I ought to thank you.
Thank me?
Yes.
For what?
You see, well, I've just discovered that was the best day I ever had in my whole life.
Dave, you don't mean it.
I never had a better time.
Oh, but I was there.
Well, that's what made it so good.
Oh, did you really have a good time?
Yes, I did.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you realize what that means? That means that you must like me a little bit.
Susan, it's more than that.
Is it?
Yes, I love you, I think.
Oh, that's wonderful, because I love you, too.
The last couple of days have been the greatest days of times of my life.
The day before was the best day of his life.
And of course, you see it coming from a mile away. Her ladder starts like swaying like crazy. This is the supernatural
slapshot bit that happens. She's like this.
This is why she's the curse. And then, of course, it all results in the whole Brontosaurus skeleton falling apart in a great physical scene because Cary Grant grabbed. I mean, it could be a stunt double, but a lot of the physical stuff, it looked like it was him.
It did.
He grabs her, and she looks like she's like 110 pounds.
Oh yeah,
soaking
this
wet.
was easy.
And he grabs her, and she's dangling, and it's
because she climbed on the.
It's just a fantastic bit of physical acting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you see the whole thing fall apart, and he hangs on to her, but it's a romantic comedy, and they do end up together.
And you can so tell that they lean back. And he does one of these where his face was in her neck. Like, there was no actual making out, but they did the, like...
Yeah, the Hays Code approach, but you could tell he probably prefers the Hays Code approach. You know, old Mr. Grant. So that is, we're easing into Movies Are Gay this month, and that is Bringing Up Baby by Howard Hawks. What a fun-ass movie this was.
So fun, yeah.
Ton of fun. You're going to give it 1 through 5. I'm going to give it 1 through 5. Combined for best out of 10. I could go higher on future rewatches, but I think this is a solid 4 movie. And all our ratings are subject to change. We can always think about it. But I think this is at least a 4. So
I do too. I am going to give it 4.25.
All right, at 8.25 is Howard Hawks' Bringing Up Baby from 1938. It's between Beau is Afraid and Hot Shots.
Oh my God.
And also shares the rankings with another Charles Ruggles film, It Happened on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
And movies like Gaslight, Killers of the Flower Moon, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. 8.25. 8.25. It's in good company there. So we're off to a good start here for Movies Are Gay. And we will get more blatantly gay this month, more often than not. So check the show notes for links and other places to find us. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell us what you think about this movie. This movie was a sleeper hit over a long period of time. Other movies like It's a Wonderful Life were similar to that. But It's a Wonderful Life is probably the biggest movie that was like that. Mm-hmm. But Bringing Up Baby definitely gets a lot of love in hindsight by those, especially amongst queer culture. So, and there you go. What should our sign-off be?
Movies are gay, and so are you.
He also likes music, particularly that song, I Can't Give You Anything But Love. David.
Oh, that's absurd.
No, it isn't, David. Really, listen.
This is probably the silliest thing that ever happened to me.
I know it's silly, but it's true. He absolutely adores the tune.
Now, what's the difference whether it adores
It's
or not?
funny that he should like such an old tune, isn't it? But I imagine that down in Brazil they Listen.
Oh, stop it, Susan.
Oh,
Stop.
David, let me show him to you.
Oh, don't do that, Susan. Don't go near the door.
No, but...
Oh, dear.
Oh. Now watch, David. You'll see he'll go right toward the music. Look at that. Isn't this remarkable? It loves it.